Hello, my name's Mark Leland. I'm 61. I'll be 62 this August. This thing is personal to me because I'm a veteran. I was in the Army. I learned how to shoot M16s. I also learned how to use an M60 as an Army and grenade launcher. They're called light anti-tank weapons. And that's when I first started using guns. When I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, in Phoenix, it's like the Wild West. You can carry a gun, load a gun on your hip, as long as it's visible, you can carry it. I mean, here's my thoughts. In this country, you got to be 21 years old to drink, okay? And I think you should be 21 years old to buy a gun. The reason I say that is because at 18 years old, you're still a kid. You just don't have the emotional maturity to buy a weapon. I think responsible gun owners like me, well, I don't own a gun anymore, but, you know, I'm all for the Second Amendment. I think people have a right to bear arms. You know, women own guns. I'd go to the gun range and I'd see women there all the time. I saw a lady that was 70 years old. I think that we should keep the Second Amendment, but I would make some changes. First of all, I would raise the age from 18 to 21 to buy a gun. You know, I just think that 18-year-olds don't have the emotional maturity to handle a gun, because if they get angry, they might lash out and use a gun when they don't need to. I don't own a gun anymore, but when I did, I had a 9mm, I had a 357 Magnum. I mean, I even had an Uzi, you know, one of those Tech 9s with the banana clip. But when I left Phoenix to come to California, I sold everything I owned. What they should do is raise the age from 18 to 21 to buy a gun. Now, when I bought a gun, there was a 3-day waiting period. That should be extended to 2 weeks, because I really believe that people that have mental health issues, they shouldn't own a gun. That 2 weeks would give them a time to do a background check. When I bought a gun, they fingerprinted me, they checked my license, my birth certificate, they did an FBI check, you know, to see if I had a record, and then they used my fingerprints to do that. And that's all well and good, but they should extend it 2 weeks. They should thoroughly vet people that are buying guns, because there's a lot of mental health issues that, you know, people shouldn't own a gun. I don't own a gun anymore. I just don't want to. But I endorse the rights of other people to have guns, but they should raise the age from 18 to 21 to buy a gun. Now, for the AR-15 and M16s, these are military weapons. They're used in the military. We use them in the Army. It's for war. And law enforcement, police officers have them. I think that for a civilian to have such a weapon, I don't think it's necessary, but in order for a civilian to have high-powered weapons like that, they have to prove that they have a need for it. They have to prove that they're responsible. So there should be 2 levels. 1, a 2-week waiting period to buy a handgun. 2, I think it should be 3 months to buy an AR-15, to buy an M16, even a Tech 9, you know, the banana clips, the little Uzis that I used to own, because these are high-grade weapons, and they're used for war, they're used for the police. And for a civilian to own this, you know, I'm thinking, why do you need something like that? And I think a civilian should be able to get it, but the restrictions should be a lot stronger. Now, look, for an 18-year-old kid to buy an AR-15 with a 3-day waiting period, no way. Because at 18, you're still a kid. You don't have the emotional maturity to buy that. When I got my concealed carry weapons permit, I was about 36 years old, I think. You know, I was an Army veteran. But there's a lot of underlying factors, you know, mental health issues. I know people that got post-traumatic stress disorder. I have it myself. I'm not going to carry a gun. I'm not going to own a gun anymore because I don't want to use it. I don't want to shoot anybody. I don't want anyone to kill me. But I just, you know, I just think that we could still keep the Second Amendment because people do have a right to own and bear arms. But there are things we can do to make sure it's safe. And the whole idea behind an 18-year-old kid buying an AR-15, no, that's not right. That's not a right. And I think if you got to be 21 years old to drink, then you should be 21 years old to buy a weapon. When I was 18 years old, which was a long time ago, I wouldn't even think about owning a weapon. What does an 18-year-old kid need with an M16, a Tech 9, or an, you know, or an M16? I mean, these Tech 9s with the banana clip, they hold up to 30 rounds. These are used for drive-by shootings. It's called spray and pray. You know, you shoot people at random. There are things that we can do to make us safer. You know, I know the argument, you know, criminals don't obey gun laws, and they don't, and they never will. But at the same time, there are things we can do to keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them, people with mental health issues. And I'm talking about people of any age. I think people with extensive criminal backgrounds shouldn't have it. You got a history of violence, shouldn't have it. You got a restraining order against you, shouldn't have it. You know, it's just, there's just a lot of things that, you know, you need to consider because it's just not a matter of gun control or even gun control safety. It's just the moral right thing to do because, you know, when I read about this, you know, how in the hell can an 18-year-old kid buy an AR-15? And what is an 18-year-old kid needed with an AR-15 anyway? Eric Harris and Dylan Klebo, for the Columbine shooting back in 1999, they were 16 years old. You know, it just, you know, I mean, how is it these kids are able to get their hands on these guns? And just, there's a common sense gun control from people like me that used to own guns because there is no way in the world I'd want an 18-year-old kid to have an AR-15. I just wouldn't. They don't need it. They shouldn't have it. They just should not have a high caliber weapon like that because that's what we use in the Army and the Marines. You know, I mean, these are weapons of war. The police use them because they need them. You can't convince me that an 18-year-old kid needs an AR-15 or a Tech 9, an Uzi, or an M16. You can't convince me of that because they don't need it. They don't need it. And I think if you got to be 21 years old to buy liquor, then you should be 21 years old to buy a weapon. I mean, it's just common sense. So it's true. We can't reduce all the weapons that are out there, but we can reduce the number of deaths. But like I said before, with, you know, AR-15s, M16s, Tech 9s, people need to show just cause why they need that. The Second Amendment does not ban a handgun. I had a 9mm Taurus that holds 16 rounds in the magazine. It was a good weapon, and I practiced with it often. But when I used to own guns, I wouldn't even think about going out there and killing people. So let's not eliminate the Second Amendment. Let's just modify it. Let's make some changes. Let's make it safe. Let's keep guns out of the hands of people who have mental health issues. And I mean people of all ages. I mean, there was a article about an 82-year-old man who shot 2 people to death. 82. and he has some severe mental health issues. He should have never had a gun. So let's make it twofold. Let's raise the age from 18 to 21 to buy a gun, and let's raise the waiting period from 3 days to 2 weeks. And for high caliber weapons like the AR-15, the Tech-9, the M16, let's make it 3 months, because those people need to show just cause. Why do they need a powerful weapon like that? Why do they need that? You know, I mean, why should anybody have an AR-15? What in the hell do you need an AR-15 for? Those are guns that are meant for killing. That's it. Because responsible gun owners, 99.9% of these people have guns in their home. And why do they have it? So if someone breaks into their house, they can defend themselves. I am all for that. But let me ask you a question. If I walk down the street with an AR-15, they'd call the police like that. So why does someone need an AR-15? You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And there are things that we can do to save lives, and that's what we want to do, save lives. We can keep the Second Amendment, but there are some changes we can make. And when you sell like when I had a Tech-9, it held up to 30 rounds, okay? That's some serious stuff. That's what the gangbangers use. You know, it's small and it's compact. And they call it spray and pray. They do drive-by shooting. They spray, you know, bullets, and they pray that they hit someone. So I just think that, you know, this is a common sense approach. Let's modify the Second Amendment. You know, let's just make these changes, because it will save lives. And I am 110% against an 18-year-old kid buying a weapon. No way. Let's raise it to 21. I know that in the military, you can be 18 years old and you can use a high velocity weapon. But see, when I was in the Army in basic training, they trained us how to use an M16. And we had to know how to use that in case we go to combat. So there are exceptions to every rule. That's the exception, because an 18-year-old kid in the Army is not like an 18-year-old civilian. An 18-year-old kid in the Army is highly trained to use an M16 or an M60. And it had a little shelf on it. I mean, the M16 uses a .227 caliber bullets. The M60 is much bigger. I think they're like something like a 4. Well, no, it's like a 327. No, 427. They're 427s. They're bigger. You know, the 227 they're like 4 inches long. The 427s are like a half a foot. I mean, these are some serious bullets. And they use full metal jackets. One more thing I want to say. As far as selling hollow points, a hollow point weapon is a flat head. It's not pointed. And when it goes into your body, it doesn't go right through. It mushrooms. It takes out a lot of organs. So with a full metal jacket, it goes straight through you. With a hollow point, it won't necessarily go right through you. It might just lodge in your body, and then it mushrooms. So when you're shot with a full metal jacket, the head of it's not pointed, it's flat. And there's like little cusp in the bullet. So when it hits the body, it mushrooms. So I don't think we should sell full metal. I don't think we should sell hollow points. Full metal jackets, fine. But hollow points, that is really made to do some serious damage, because when it hits the body, most of the time it doesn't go clean through. It mushrooms, and it does a lot more damage. The full metal jackets with the tip point, the metal, it goes right through you most of the time. So these are just common sense changes we can make. We can keep the Second Amendment, but I'm going to say this, and I'm not proud of this, but when I left Phoenix, Arizona, I went to a gun show. I sold my .357 Magnum, police grips, snub-nosed, nickel-plated revolver, and it was a nice one. I sold it for $250. And I also sold my 9mm at a gun show. If you go to these gun shows, you can buy anything you want, and they don't do background checks because you're buying from other gun owners. So with these gun shows, that should be more. They should do more. They should have more restrictions, because you can go to a gun show and you can buy anything you want. When I sold and you can do it without a background check. When I sold my 357, a guy said, "Hey, that's nice. How much you want for it?" $250. I sold it. And I don't know who this guy was. You go to a gun show, you can buy anything you want. They don't do any background check on you. They don't know who you are. And it's just, that should have more controls to it too. The gun shows, they should have more restrictions, because you got to know who you're selling a gun to. Because these guys, felons, like I said, they don't follow the law. But a lot of these felons buy their guns at gun shows because there's no background checks. There's no background checks. They can buy whatever they want. We need one more thing called a red flag law. A red flag law is where if you have a history of mental illness, that pops up. That prevents you from buying a gun. Now, people will say you can go on the street and buy anything you want. That's true, you can. But with red flag laws, if someone has a history of mental illness, a red flag pops up. And it prohibits you from buying a gun, because red flag laws are important. What if someone's done time in a mental institution? Being an Army veteran, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. So with my PTSD, I don't own a gun. I don't think I could get a gun because I have PTSD, and I don't think they would sell it to me. But I don't want a gun. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, I don't think I could get a gun. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the laws, but it's just, there are so many things that we can do to save lives. And that's what we want to do. Save lives, and the NRA, they don't want any of this because they are hell-bent on making sales. But look, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And with the NRA, they got to say, wait a minute. All right, we'll make some changes. These gun shows, they should have more restrictions on them, because you can go into a gun show and you can buy anything you want and you can sell anything you want. I saw guys buying Tech 9s, these little Uzis that the gangbangers use. I've seen buying they're M16s in the Army, but the civilian version of the M16 is AR-15, and the M14 is what the Marines use. So it's just really, it's just horrendous that people can just buy this, and it's just, why would they want this? I mean, why would they want this? I mean, it's just, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, it's just, if you're saying you want safety in your community, there should be some changes in the law. Don't abolish the Second Amendment, but make some changes to it. Common sense approach, because there's no way you're going to convince me that an 18-year-old kid needs an AR-15 or an M16 or an M14 or a Tech 9 Uzi. They don't need it. And here's another thing. If someone's going to buy 1,000 rounds, think about this. When I owned a weapon, I had an extra 100 rounds. I'd buy 100 rounds at a time. If you're going to buy 1,000, 2,000 rounds of ammunition, I'm thinking, why do you need that many rounds of ammunition? I mean, I know women that own guns, and they have about 50 rounds of ammo. And they only use the gun. The gun is at home. They don't, they just have it at home just in case someone breaks in. But they don't carry it around with them. But some of these women, and a lot of guys, have CCW permits. It's called Concealed Carry Weapons Permit. A lot of these people, and I had it too, have CCW permits to where they can conceal the weapon, and you never know. And they have, a lot of celebrities have this too. A lot of celebrities have CCW permits, Concealed Carry Weapons Permit. You don't know if they're packing. I mean, a little old lady will pull out a Magnum, and you don't know it. So, when I get these, I just think enough is enough. And I think that, I would have liked to have known where Eric Harris and Dylan Klebo got those weapons, the Columbine shooting. 16-year-old kids. How in the hell is a 16-year-old kid going to get a high-powered AR-15 on their own? And, and for parents that have kids, if you're a parent and you have kids and you have guns in the house, you got to make sure that that gun is under lock and key, because a little kid will wander in and take your gun and accidentally shoot somebody. There should be laws against parents that don't enforce or who don't secure their weapons, because if you're a parent and you got a kid in the house, you better be damn sure that that gun is secured and your kid can't get to it. That means the ammo and the gun itself, because a lot of people, they have magazines that are loaded with ammo. So I hope that this is help bring to light some of the issues we find. I think that we do have to have legislation. I think there should be some changes to the Second Amendment, but I think a lot of it comes down to mental health. I don't think these shootings are not so much a gun control issue, it's a mental health issue. But there are things that we can do to aid that. So let's make some changes to the Second Amendment without eliminating the Second Amendment. But let's look at mental health. We don't just look at gun control. Let's look at mental health. People that are mentally disabled, people that are just, they're not mentally competent to have a gun. Let's keep guns out of their hand. So anyway, my name is Mark Leland, and I hope this video makes sense to you. And I guess that's all I have to say.